good. Okay. What's news, everyone? Today I'm going to be talking about immigration, Indian immigration. There's been a lot of news around Indian immigration recently because apparently we have spies in Australia now, which is kind of crazy. Of course, there's been spies since the dawn of time and the dawn of civilization, but we have Indian spies in Australia, which is random. Very random, I think. Which has been kind of brought to light due to ASIO giving a statement about, I think they had to kick out 2 Indian spies in Australia. So it's crazy. So I'm going to be talking about all that. I'm going to be starting off with mainly just news stories. And then I'm going to work my way into more like kind of database stuff. There's like this, holy shit, I started reading about this morning when I woke up. There's this thing called an Australian-Indian ECT agreement, which was essentially signed in 2020 around then with Scott Morrison, and holy shit, that's cooked. That's such a cooked agreement. We get into that, talk about some of the data around the actual migration, all that kind of stuff, but you know how it goes. We'll start with this. So yeah, Indian spies infiltrated Australia while our prime ministers covered it up and signed damaging immigration and trade deals. So we'll get into the trade deal part. But yeah, here's obviously ScoMo and Albanese just getting that yellow fever. I don't know what you call Indian fever, but just loving it, eating it up. So this was June 17th. So yeah, just about last week. Australian expelled Indian spies who were operating with impunity inside the rapidly growing immigrant community, but successive governments failed to inform the public and instead signed damaging trade and immigration deals. Australia's intelligence agencies became aware in 2020 that Indian operatives were trying to access sensitive defence technology, breach airport security protocols, and target politicians and a state police force. An investigation by Four Corners has revealed. I haven't actually looked into that investigation. I kind of missed that link, but let's have a look. Come on now. Narendra infiltrating Australia. Yeah, I think that's a big story. So I don't know. Whatever, man. But yeah, so essentially we've got spies that we've expelled. And at least 4 spies were expelled, some of who have been working as diplomats at India's High Commission, which have made headlines earlier this year when the country's former High Commissioner Navdeep Suri Sain was ordered to pay $97,000 to a former staffer he made look like slave-like. So yeah, it's pretty insane to me that this has just come out. No one talks about it. There's no big fuss about it. You think, there's so many things in Australia that you think people would just protest over and be like, what the fuck? No, that's where I draw the line. But no, they just keep kind of going. So anyway, the May 2023 deal allowed for 5 student visas for Indians, 8-year temporary work visas for Indian graduates, unlimited work rights for spouses, and 3-month visitor visas for family. Yeah, so this is what I'll get into. It's pretty insane. It's pretty much just like bring everyone in. You can just come in if you fit the very kind of loose definitions of a worker. You can bring your whole family over as well. It's crazy. It talks about how like yoga teachers are in a special category along with chefs, allowing them to stay for more than 4 years. And yeah, it's basically a gift to India. Like this trade agreement, which I will get into, pretty much is just like a charity. It's like a charity thing. Like it's just like a charitable policy where we're just giving everything to India. We essentially get nothing back from it, and it's madness. So I'll keep going through the things I've got here. I don't want to ramble for too long. Major party deals with India to blame for Australia's Swiss cheese immigration policy. Economics says not a serious country. So yeah, essentially India has been our main importer of immigrants for I think the past 4 years, since around 2020. So it's pretty crazy. If I find, where is this link? I don't want to spoil the links. So yeah, here's our immigration data from 2015. So we've got Indians up here, and they just went fucking boom. Look at that shit. And that was around, I think, when the agreement, this is when the agreement was was getting solidified, which is this agreement here, the Australian-Indian ECTA, which has been kind of in the works for a while. But yeah, so it just went fucking boom. Obviously, we had COVID, so I guess it had to stop down to make sense on the world stage or whatever. But then it's just skyrocketed since. And Indians have become the second biggest diaspora in Australia as opposed to China, of course. So we mainly just have Indians and Chinese, which is sick. It's so cool. I love Australia just being an Indian and Chinese economic state. That's great. But yeah, so this is what's happening, guys. You know, again, that fell off. Again, it bounced back up. Philippines as well, which is random. Like having a bunch of like Filipinos, like Chinese, Indians, and Filipinos, man. And yeah, this is also, I talked about this in a TikTok I made, but this is the like immigration rate of like Australians, I think. So I think this is pretty much just saying that they're all leaving. Like, if you see, it's always in the negative. So they're just constantly leaving the country until they have to come back because of the border closure. And then like, so funny, like you got all the Indians, all the Chinese going up, and the Australians just go, well, fuck that. I ain't dealing with that. So that's kind of where we're at. We've got Indian spies, hundreds of thousands of Indians coming in, Chinese, and Australians are leaving, and Australians aren't having kids too, which I didn't get a tab for that. But that's kind of the overview. So just keep moving on, keep the ball rolling. India's Modi government operated nest of spies in Australia before being disrupted by ACO. So this is what the kind of whole deal is about. I'm going to play the video. That was, 30th of April, so a couple months ago. And it's just, same thing. We've got Indian spies. And it's really just, it's the world stage, guys. It's the world stage. If you go deeper into it, it gets to the what is it called? UN, that kind of stuff. The World Economic Forum, of course. Klaus Schwab, of course. All these kind of things. It's all part of the plan, I guess, to just destabilize the West, of course. But this is just how it's being done in Australia, specifically with India and China, of course, because they're above us. They can just like, boom, rein them in. And Philippines, just rein them in, destabilize that shit. And yeah, just essentially create just like slave classes in Australia, really. That's really what we end up becoming, because we can't afford houses, can't afford families. We just work 40 hours a week for nothing, essentially. And we just wait for the government, who's letting in spies, to fix the problem instead of doing anything about it, which is great. So anyway, moving on. So yeah, this has kind of been coming out. We had the spy thing, and we also had like, people are talking about it, right? It's pretty obvious. There's a lot of Indians coming in. And there was a video, lots of videos been about Indian immigration, because it's been so high. It's become so high, the numbers, that it's just hard to look away for. But there was this classic TikTok that went viral about it. I'll just play this, which is on Melbourne this year. This was like a month ago. And just look at this. Brutal. Just, And like, someone said that this was for an event. Guys, these guys are just people going to work. Come on, let's be real. They're just waiting to cross the bloody road. Look, it's a green light. Okay, which means cars are going through, and they're waiting to cross the road. That's about all it is. So it's insane. It's getting crazy. Australians are we're sort of used to Chinese immigrants. Like if you go to Sydney, you go to Parramatta, we just kind of know, okay, there's going to be a lot of Chinese people there. There's going to be a lot of like Middle Eastern people there. That's kind of what the city, especially Sydney and Melbourne, are like. But the Indian thing, for me at least, from my perspective, is kind of a new one. And it's like, holy shit, are we really just going to do this as well? Like, the Chinese immigration, Tiananmen Square, that was one of the bigger reasons that a lot of Chinese moved. You're like, okay, I understand that. You got like the wars in the Middle East, which you can kind of use to justify Middle Eastern immigration. Okay, I understand. But Indians? Like, what the fuck? Like, why? Why are we just letting hundreds of thousands of these people in? Like, I don't get it. All right, sure, man. That sounds cool to me. So yeah, that's kind of what's happening. what else is there? This is kind of an article that I had to fucking pay for, by the way, Sydney Morning Herald, for your shitty article that I only clicked on it because I was like, oh, let me see where this list is, where it's talking about yoga instructors being like one of the higher priority things instead of construction workers. Didn't even show me it. Anyway, 90,000 construction workers would be needed by July to keep the government's home building target on track. But of course, we can never build enough homes if we're letting in hundreds of thousands of immigrants every year. And that makes just perfect sense, but people don't understand that. Okay. Anyway, sure, that makes sense. We need the immigrants, dude. We have this skill shortage. We need the immigrants. You know? Yeah, because we have a skill shortage because people. Anyway, I digress. I could rant. So, we'll keep going on. I guess I'll get into more nitty-gritty shit now. Like the live, if you're watching, help me out. It's the first formal episode. I'm going to try and do at least one of these per fortnight, per week, depending how much traction I get, how much love. Let's see how things going. Yeah, it's all on Rumble. Preach. 5 people on Rumble. Let's go. Okay. So we're going to get into this part, the Australian-Indian Comprehensive Economic Cooperation Agreement. Man, imagine talking to your co-workers about that. Guys, we need to understand a problem that we're all facing because we're the working class. We need to unite. So I need you guys to go home and understand the Australian-Indian Comprehensive Economic Cooperation Agreement. It's really catchy. Or the SECA. So the SECA, as far as I understand, was an agreement that was kind of being drawn up, here in 2011. And it kept going on. So there were 9 negotiating rounds, and then they kind of ceased in 2016. And then in 2021, it came back, and they concluded with this thing called the Economic Cooperation and Trade Agreement, which is essentially what we're dealing with now. So this is pretty much the agreement that Australia is practicing with its negotiations with India. So that's signed. So we'll kind of go through that now. So they're trying to make a bigger agreement, I guess. This is like what SECA is, the Comprehensive Economic Cooperation Agreement. That's the big dog. But they're like, oh, we can't do that yet, so let's do this. And then see. I don't know what the goal is of that, by the way. And again, you'll start to see what even is the benefit to this, which is very little. So I may as well show this. This was Indian immigration into Australia by profession. It's a cool little study. I'll show you what it's from. So this is a full government document, and this is just talking about we just love India apparently now. This is just great. India is so cool. So the main argument they really give is that it's all about exports, Australian exports to India, and then we just invest money in India, and apparently that's a good thing, that we send all our shit to India and that we invest all our money in India. That's apparently cool. So it just keeps on going on. Got the report. And Indian immigration, here we go, which we saw in the other graph. But 2001, man, this is just the whole population, by the way. 2001, we had 100,000 Indian immigrants. And then, waka, and now we've got almost 800,000, which will end up around 1 million, surely, right? Crazy. And this isn't even accounting for the Indians that are born in Australia, right? If you had an Indian family come over in 2006, they have a kid in 2011. That's not being taken into account in this graph. Okay, this is just the population of Indian-born residents in Australia. Well, I guess so. I guess this might be the graph here, Indian ancestry. But how old do you even have to be to claim that? To be, what, you're going to make a 6-year-old ask? I don't know. But anyway, there's a lot of fucking Indians, okay? And it's not about their race. I've got nothing against their race. Okay, just because they're Indian, Asian, brown people, I don't really care that much. But Indians are very nationalistic. Indians are very insular. Indians are very nepotistic. Indians are very hierarchical in their social outlook on the world. They have a very strong us versus them mindset, competition, fierceness, those kind of things. are in the Indian philosophy mindset. So that's why I don't like Indians coming over as much, because they're just economic migrants who practice nepotism and are kind of just like very rude. Like they don't really have a lot of respect for people who are below them, which I think comes from the caste system and all that kind of stuff. But anyway, it's fascinating that we're doing this. So yeah, again, more Indian immigrants, yada yada. This is kind of interesting, the Indian dispersion across the cities. Okay, so 2011, 2016. So mainly Sydney, or Melbourne, of course, Perth, and Brisbane would be the biggest, of course. Then, you got that in New South Wales. Percentage of growth from 11. Yeah, anyway, you can read that yourself. Won't go too much into it. It's kind of cool. Like, the amount of effort they put into these bloody reports to show you, just hey, look where all the Indians are going. How cool is that? It's almost comedic. It's this Indian-born residents represent a comparatively young population cohort. The median age was 33. 33 is the median age in 2016, which is just a working man. He's just trying to make money, essentially, as far as I understand it. This is the Indian diaspora of males versus females. Males, Anyway. Top 6 Indian languages spoken at home by people who indicated Indian ancestry: Hindi, Punjabi, yada. And then 80% had higher educations. This point here gets me, though, okay? 80% had higher educations. Is that by India's standard? Like, what are the standards of this higher education? Are these Australian standards? Because what does that mean? I don't even know what that means. Even people who are higher educated in Australia are still idiots. And yet we think, okay, Indians who are higher educated in India are going to be really valuable to us. Okay. 70% participation rate in the labour force compared to 65 nationwide. From Indian residents. 785 median weekly income. Sure. So yeah, they're making money. Cool story, man. Largest tax-paying migrant group in Australia. So yeah, this is interesting. So I don't know if the other is. Oh, that would be maybe Australia. No. Yeah, I'm not sure. Anyway, Indians are making up a fuckload of it compared to others. Employment. This is another interesting part, and then I'll move on after this. But I would recommend reading the report if you've got time, if you're interested. The top occupations in 2016 by percentage for Indian-born residents. So ICT, health, business mining, specialist managers, carers, these kind of things, right? Look at that shit. Isn't that crazy? This is the Australian population, top in occupations for Indian-born residents. Look at that, how much they're just saturating these markets. Like, people talk about, they're not taking your jobs. They're not taking your jobs. It's like, dude, look at this graph. How can you say that? They're not taking your job. Like, it's literally all just IT. And of course there's a what do you call it? A stereotype of Indians being in IT. And I would imagine that the stereotype and the nepotism kind of play into each other and just make it go crazy high. So anyway, I'll move on. I could just go through that graph all day, really. I think that stuff, it's interesting. So, I don't know, I start getting into this agreement, the actual nitty gritty of this, and then we will see. So, historic trade agreement with India will allow Australians to reduce economic dependence on China, which, okay. So, we don't want to depend on China because that's bad, because we might go to war with China. So, let's depend on India, okay? As opposed to, maybe we should use Australia's resources for the Australian people. Wouldn't that be cool? Wouldn't that be cool if we actually tried to sell our stuff to ourselves so that we could use it for ourselves and our own people, as opposed to selling it overseas and then bringing in heaps of immigrants? No, that makes no sense. You have to sell everything to everyone. Okay, so anyway, that's just kind of where I started with this. So this is how I kind of sort of found the agreement, which is that ECTA, whatever it was. So yeah, there's ScoMo with whatever his name is. I'm not very good with the names. And yeah, we'll get into that now. So yeah, actually, this is one thing I want to talk about too. Financial literacy. Okay, 27% of India is financially literate. Okay, that's not very good if you don't understand that. Financial literacy in Australia too, I had that up before, but it's like 60-70%, which is far higher. Yeah, 60% had financial literacy in Australia, which is way higher. And even the people that I think are financially literate in Australia aren't very literate, right? Like with with the actual monetary system especially, and how that all works, which is a major flaw in Australians' thinking and understanding of the world. But yeah, 20% of Indians are financially literate. So 70% aren't. And to imagine that, it's only the financially literate ones that are coming in, especially when we're allowing the whole families to come in. Oh, dude, that's just a mess. So I'll get rid of these. I don't really need these. And then I'll get into the real weeds of this stuff, okay? The real weeds. Oh, I should sit up. How's my posture? How are we looking? Where are the comments, guys, by the way? I need some love here, man. I got 3 people watching. Thank you for watching. But yeah, let me know if you have any questions. If there's anything that is pissing you off, that kind of stuff that you're worried about, I'd love to hear from it. I will kind of answer the comments, really. Anyway, we'll keep moving on. The India-Australia ECT outcomes. So this is just kind of the front page of it, where I started. You can get into the benefits. And it's so ironic. They talk about the benefits for Australia, and the only argument they make is we can sell shit. That's pretty much all they say. So they go here, Indian snapshots of the benefits, new market openings for Australian services, exports in India. Isn't that so cool that we can just sell everything to India, guys, and we can make a bunch of money, guys? That's pretty much what they're saying. So preferential tariffs for Australians' goods. So yeah, they're getting rid of all the tariffs, which is just taxes that the government puts on exports. They're getting rid of these so that we can sell all this to India, and that is the benefit to Australia. And the immigration that we'll let in, and that we'll get to the immigration. The immigration's so funny about how the differences in how India is treating Australian immigrants, and how the vice versa. It's so funny. So yeah, that's the tariffs, benefits, goods exports again. So that's the whole benefit of this agreement. We can just sell look at all this shit we can sell, guys. Isn't this sick? Oh, and also we can sell our services too. How about that? India is Australia's highest, third largest services export market. We can just sell all our people to India too. It's fucking sick, cunt. So higher education, of course, insurance, banking, yada. We're just selling our shit to India. Is the crux, guys. Let's keep moving. Where's this one? This is benefits for Australia. Yep, still benefits for Australia. This is the report here from this. Again, it's all just about selling shit, okay? I hate to repeat myself too much, but that's really what it gets down to. This is the total Australia-India ECT official text. This is the whole thing. So if you need to find this, if you want to look into it, this is what it is. And it kind of just goes through all the things. So it starts off just talking about trades, trade tariffs, trade remedies, etc., and then services, how we would sell it. I haven't looked into all of this. What I was really interested in was this: the temporary movement of natural persons, not immigrants, not economic migrants. No, natural persons who are temporarily moving into Australia. They don't want to become citizens. No. They're just temporarily moving natural people. It's all the language stuff. Fucking kills me. So, the real juicy part, okay, which is migration. How does this ECTA apply to migration, and what does it look like for Indians trying to get to Australia? What does it look like for Australians trying to get to India? Not that I imagine that's a very large demographic. But, so this is what it looks like. This is what it is. And I'll try and just cover this really quickly because, it's pretty boring, dry stuff, obviously, all this. It's not very fascinating or exciting. But, so this is the conditions or the limitations on people who come to Australia. Okay, so you understand that this is what they're limited to. And if there's nothing here, there's no limitations. And then it defines the different sects of Indians trying to move to Australia in this column here. So, it talks about definition: you're a business visitor. Business visitors being natural persons seeking to travel to Australia for business purposes, while whose remuneration or financial support for the duration of the visit must be derived from India, outside of Australia. So if you come to Australia, you're a business visitor. You can't sell anything, and you can't make any money from Australian businesses. You can just come here, apparently. I guess you can just be a business visitor for as long as you want. I don't understand that. I guess, okay. And then they get into service sellers. If you're a salesman, a temporary entry for initial 6 months, up to a maximum of 12. If you're a business visitor, whatever. Anyway, these things here, right, they all kind of overlap. That's one thing you need to understand. They all sort of overlap. Like, how do you... Is it not possible just to jump between these categories? Like, if you're a business visitor, being natural persons who are seeking to travel to Australia for business purposes, including investment purposes, you can be for 3 months. But okay, what if you do that for 3 months and then just chop into the business visitor now? Oh, I'm not doing any more investing. I've stopped investing as of March. So now I'm just a business visitor. These kind of things, these kind of games that they could play with the whole thing. It's just crazy. Like, you just jump in between. How does this work? How do you enforce this? How do you monitor this? It's nuts. And you just know that the Indian migrants, they're going to play this system like any human would. You'd play the system if you can and just find loopholes. Because this is just so set up for loopholes. It's crazy. You're an installer, etc. Natural persons installer, service machinery and equipment. Temporary for 3 months. Okay, cool. Intra-corporate, natural person employed by an enterprise of India established and lawfully and actively operating in Australia, who is transferred to fill a position in the parent branch. So if you're an Indian company with a branch in Australia, you can come here, and it's all dependent on the employer sponsorship, which pretty much means if the Indian corporation will pay the person to be in Australia, they can just stay for as long as they want, I guess. There's no rule, or as it says here, right, temporary up to 4 years with the possibility of staying further. So what does that mean? You can just be here forever, I guess. And the rest of the categories are pretty much the exact same thing. Sponsorships, 4 years, you know what I'm talking about. Again, same kind of shit. It's just like 4 years, possibly a further stay, etc., etc., etc. Oh, here it is. Oh, I just found it. Look at that, live on the air. I found it. A natural person, contractual. Let's read this. I'll turn this into a little snippet, Temporary entry and temporary stay of such natural persons is subject to employer sponsorship. Full details of employer sponsorship requirements, including eligible occupations, are available on the website. Okay, that's what we meant to find. It. Sponsorship is a requirement, including temporary entry and temporary stay shall be granted for up to a combined total of 1,800 people per year of qualified professionals, Indian traditional chefs and yoga instructors. That's crazy. Very crazy. So there it is. That's where you see the Indian stuff. 1,800 people, though, isn't a lot compared to the hundreds of thousands we've been having in. But I guess, yeah, whatever. But here's my last point I'll probably make, and then I'll pack it up, is the spouses and dependents. Okay, so obviously one person moving to Australia to work is one thing. If their family is in Australia, they've probably got a large incentive to move back to India because they feel ties, homesickness, that kind of stuff. But the goal of moving your whole family to Australia to have a great life, is a far bigger incentive, okay? And this kind of brings that into the question. So, For a natural person of India who has been granted temporary entry and temporary stay or an extension of temporary stay under the commitments set out in C, D, and E, which just means if you're a worker whose sponsorship is extended. So if you're getting paid to work here, Australia shall, upon application, grant the accompanying spouse or dependent the right of entry and temporary stay, movement, and work for an equal period to that of the natural person. So that means, okay, if you move here as one of these, independent executives, as one of these intra-corporate transferees, etc., and your company says, oh yeah, you know what, you've been there for 4 years, go there for 6. Well, now your partner can be there for 6 years too, and it pretty much just means that you can stay there for as long as you want. That's the agreement. Okay, that's why we have so many Indians coming to Australia, because of this bloody agreement, which is just full of loopholes, completely loose in its explanations of how you get in. Insanity. Just open borders, floodgates, essentially, for Indians, in particular. So that's why you're going to see more Indians. That's why we see so many Indians as it is already, because of this agreement. And I guess finally, before I pack up, I'll show the other side to this, right? Which will, it's got to make you laugh. A laugh or cry. So, this is the opposite of that. Okay, so this is the requirements or the restrictions of Australians trying to go into India. Which again, who the fuck would want to go from Australia to India, dude? That's insanity. But they put it in the agreement for some sort of equality, I guess. So, again, I'm not going to go through all this. We kind of went through who you are. It's so nitty gritty. But essentially, I just want you to read this. Okay, so if you're like the first class, we had 6 to 12 months in our deal, right? But if you're an Australian trying to go to India in the first class, no more than 180 days. Sorry, no more than 180 days, I think. And then the laws maybe will kick you out, and then you keep going on. The next class, initial period of up to 1 year, whichever is, or the period of the contract, whichever is less. You see this language? The period of stay may be extended on a year-to-year basis. Year-to-year, okay, so you don't just get this 4-year free reign that we get in Australia. It's year-to-year, which is important. To a total basis not exceeding 5 years. So we give them full access for as long as is deemed necessary, but yet they will give us, as short as the contract is, or 1 year, not the fuck, what the fuck, insanity. Again, the next kind of thing, if you're mining or whatever this stuff is, initial period up to 1 year, or the contract, whichever is less. Keep going, 1 year, period of contract with whichever is less, 3 months of the period of contract. That's the max you get, guys. So the max you'll get to move to India is a maximum of 5 years. That's it. And that's if you pass the year-to-year reevaluation that they give you for being an Australian immigrant in India, which again, no one would even want to do. But if you did, this is what you'd have to deal with. So yeah, it's a completely one-sided extortion of Australia. Like, we're just getting completely robbed, blind. We're getting destroyed from within, from without. We're selling all our stuff to overseas, and then we're letting everyone in to take all of our jobs, to take all of our houses, to clutter our roads, to cause resentment within the community, whilst we sell all our exports, and we get nothing from it. And the working man pays. Like always, the working man pays for this. The family man pays. The patriot pays. The nationalist pays. For all of this, the government is fine. The government are fine because they're in the pockets of the big global organizations, and they're being taken care of, and it's happy days for them. So, yeah, I guess that's really the gist. That's pretty much everything I wanted to cover on this video. Yeah, and I'll pretty much stop there. I got some people watching, so if you'd like to comment anything, now would be the chance, or I will pack it up. Man, YouTube really gives you nothing, eh? No love on YouTube, but Rumble's way more active. So yeah, that'll be the end. I'm just gonna chill now, I guess, and maybe just talk about some few things while people are hanging out. So yeah, thanks for watching. But yeah, I'll keep going. No, I need a formal goodbye because I'm gonna make this to a video on YouTube. So yeah, thanks for watching. Like and subscribe. Give all the likes. Help me out. I'm gonna do this every fortnight, hopefully. Hopefully weekly if I've got the time and the energy. Yeah, find me on TikTok. Find me on all the links that I've got on this little side thing. If that works, I think that'll work. And yeah, see you next time.